You're listening to EPN, the E-Podcast Network.
Welcome to Enterprise Radio, the signature show of EPN, the Entrepreneur Podcast Network, your channel for exclusive interviews with entrepreneurs, small business owners, and some of the world's top executives who share business strategies and insights that can all help you build your business, leading to your business success. And now, broadcasting from anywhere between Brazil, South America to Los Angeles, California, it is your host, Eric Dye.
This is Eric Dye, and once again, welcome to Enterprise Radio, working in conjunction with our Legal Corner, a part of EPN, the Entrepreneur Podcast Network. Today, we are speaking with Jennifer Grady, founding attorney and business consultant at the Grady Firm, PC. Jennifer today will provide legal tips on starting and growing a business within the U.S., with special focus on corporate setup and immigration options for entrepreneurs. Certainly an interesting topic, and we welcome you back, Jennifer, to Enterprise Radio.
Hi, Eric. I'm happy to be back. Thanks for having me.
Certainly is, and good to speak with you again. Hope all is well. So first of all, for those that may have missed our last time together here on the program, tell us a little bit about your firm and walk us through the services that you provide.
Sure. I founded the Grady Firm in 2012 as a way to assist entrepreneurs from the beginning of their business ideas all the way up through expansion. And we practice three areas of law. The first would be business law. We help entrepreneurs take an idea and turn it into a business. That would include entity formation like a corporation or an LLC and contract drafting. We would also help with employment law. We do compliance training for California employers, and we also defend them if they're sued by current or former employees. And lastly, we do immigration law for entrepreneurs and their families. So that means we do lots of visas like the H-1B visa for professionals, and we also help investors start a business in the U.S. and do the immigration and corporate setup that goes along with that.
If you would, Jennifer, what are some things someone who is thinking about starting a business can do to get started before leaving his or her job? Certainly a very crucial and critical crossroad and time frame for those that fall into that category.
Definitely. So I wanted to talk about this because there are things that people can do, even if they're a little bit scared to take that plunge and jump into entrepreneurship. There's plenty of things we can do to get started ahead of time. The first one would be to build up your savings. We recommend that you have at least 6 months savings in the bank, and that's because it will take a while to get that business rolling, to start turning a profit, and there's a lot of upfront costs that develop. The second is to do your market research. Is your service or your product something that's actually needed in the marketplace, or is this just an idea that may not really come to fruition? And definitely friends and family are a place to start, but they may not want to hurt your feelings, so you may want to get some objective outside advice or even contact organizations like Small Business Development Center and see what resources they have to help you do some market research. The next thing that you can do is to form a business entity. Now, that would be like an LLC or corporation. That's something that takes, in some states, just one day. In others, it can be up to a month by the time you get all the permits and licenses and operating agreements drafted. Another thing that you can do is build your website. Now, the good thing about that in today's age is that you can even do it yourself just to get it up there and have a presence online. You can do that for free on Wix or WordPress. There's also GoDaddy. There's plenty of options there for you to get that web presence established. The next thing you can do is to have some contracts started. If you're working with independent contractors or your web developer or suppliers, you can go ahead and get those started and rolling. And the last thing that you can do while you're just thinking about an idea or even years into being in a business is starting with networking. That's something you always need to do at all stages of the business. And you can go to that right now. There's hundreds of events on meetup.com. You can look up, for example, in California, we have Silicon Beach. Up north, there's Silicon Valley. Just Google, look around. There's also groups like Network After Work. Find where your target clients are or where there's people in your industry that you can start talking to and just do some informational interviews, find out a little bit more about what you want to do, maybe test your idea a little bit, and get that going.
Also, when is it the right time to form a legal entity like a corporation or an LLC?
Sure. So really the only reason when you wouldn't do that is if you're just working for yourself and there's not too much risk of liability. But once you bring partners into the mix, or you have something where you have maybe clients coming to your site, or you have a product that you're selling and there's any potential for liability, you're going to want to set up an entity. We recommend usually an S Corp or an LLC. Sometimes a C Corporation. You're getting taxed twice, so you may want to do that in limited circumstances. So when doing this, I always recommend that you have a conversation with a lawyer and with the CPA, because there's two different aspects in making that decision, the legal benefits and the tax consequences as well. So that's something that you can do at any time, but I definitely recommend, if you are working with partners, to get all of that ironed out in your agreements, and I'm going to talk about those a little bit more in the next question.
And speaking of which, what are some of the startup documents an entrepreneur would need in your opinion?
Sure. So I like to put this into categories of who is going to need the documents, and that is the state, the city, the IRS, if you have any partners, and if you have any investors. So first we would do the formation documents, and that is going to be with your Secretary of State. So if we were to form a corporation or an LLC, we would fill out your articles of organization or incorporation. Now we tell the state that you have a legal entity that exists. After that, you would get an EIN number so you can open a bank account. Now that's like the Social Security number of your business. Now that's letting the IRS know of your existence. The next thing you would need is to let the city know. Everybody wants a little piece of your money, and the city is no exception, so you would need a local business license. And if you are going to be selling any tangible goods, you would also need a seller's permit as well. If you have a professional license, like an accountant, attorney, contractor, you also need to check with your state licensing board for those. Now, lastly, if you have any partners or investors, it's absolutely crucial that you have a good document. So if you had an LLC, we can put this in the operating agreement. You can also put it in a shareholders agreement. Now, this is so important because at some point you may have different points of view, especially when money is involved or if the business isn't doing well. I always see that's when the fights come up. So it's imperative that you get good counsel, you think about everything up front rather than just downloading an agreement off the internet, because it may not be appropriate for you, or it may not have all the different considerations that you should look into before getting into this relationship.
Today we are joined by Jennifer Grady, founding attorney and business consultant at the Grady Firm PC here on Enterprise Radio, a part of the Entrepreneur Podcast Network. Don't forget you can follow the show on Twitter at ePodcast Network, and we're also streaming on demand 24/7 on TuneIn Radio and the TuneIn Radio app for your listening convenience. Now, Jennifer, what are some ways that entrepreneurs can minimize the risk of hiring the wrong employees or choosing the wrong partners?
Sure, Eric. I'll focus on working with employees first. So what I always recommend here is to hire slow and fire fast. Now, why do I say that? Number one, you want to see if you can test the waters a little bit, see if this person has the same sense of urgency and the skills needed. You may want to have a skills test. I always recommend having a job application, getting their CV or resume, and calling at least 2 or 3 references and seeing, would that person hire this prospective employee again? Next, I would say once you get in and hire them, to have a 90-day review. And the purpose of this is to set the expectations up front that you will be reviewing the employee. And this is an excellent time to tell them what they're doing right and to give any suggestions as to what they can do to improve in the future. And if you know already by 3 months that it's not working out, it's highly likely that may not improve. I can't tell you, Eric, how many employers come to me when they have issues with someone and they say, oh, we should have fired them a long time ago, and now we have this tangled mess. So really, hire slow and fire fast. Also, there's a lot of employee documents you can have in place, like an employee handbook or policies and procedures, and those outline the rules of your company and puts the employee on notice. So always make sure that you get that sign and keep that in their personnel file. Lastly, in terms of working with partners and investors, I definitely recommend that you have open and honest conversations up front. This is like a marriage. This is your baby. This is your life that you're putting into this business with your money and your time. And you want to make sure you like these people, that you're comfortable enough to share a bank account with them, and that you want to take the company into the same place. And of course, always get everything in writing. Have a solid operating agreement or shareholders agreement. If you have a good one, it's very easy to have a partner leave later or to bring in new people.
Yeah, on that hiring slow and firing fast, that's about the best advice you could give right there. What are some visa options available for entrepreneurs that want to work or start a business within the U.S.? Certainly a popular topic, immigration here in these days and weeks here in the past.
Right. It's definitely timely this year, of course. There are several that we can do, some for employees and some for managers or investors. The first one I'll talk about is very timely. It's called the H-1B. And this is for specialty occupation professionals. Often you may hear of this as STEM professions like science, technology, coding, anything like that. And we applied for this March 31st. The application period is April 1st to work in October of the following year. The downside to this is that there is a cap of $65,000 for people with a bachelor's degree, but there's another $20,000 for those with master's degrees. And the reason this is so popular is because you can get a 3-year visa with the opportunity to renew another 3 years, and it can lead to a green card. So this is something we're going to be working on for the next 3 months, and it only comes around once a year. The next visa that we're working on a lot with foreign entrepreneurs is called the L1A. So either someone who is an executive or manager abroad who's worked for that company 1 out of the last 3 years, or if this is a business owner, executive manager for a company that's been in existence abroad and they want to open the business here, we would help them with this. Now, the benefit of this is that there is no cap and no deadline. This is something we can do at any time in the year, and you can get up to 7 years, and it can lead to a green card. So this is a really great visa right now for entrepreneurs. The next one is called the E2, and that's a treaty trader visa. Now, only certain countries are eligible for this. So citizens of China, India, Brazil, Russia wouldn't be eligible, but for a lot of countries they can. And this is if you invest at least about $100,000 in a new entity, you can get this visa, and it can go on indefinitely. So I have a client who has a tequila import company, and he's had that visa for about 25 years. It will never lead to a green card, but it is an option. As long as the business is viable, you can stay in the country to run the business. And the last one that we do for people who may not have another option is the J1, and this is for trainees, interns, au pairs, professors. This is more of like a catch-all visa where you would pay a sponsor company to place you with another company, and this can last for 1 to 2 years. And it's a great way to get to the U.S., make some contacts, see if you can get an employer to sponsor you for one of the other visas.
Outstanding information in that regard. Thanks for sharing that in great depth, Jennifer. Now, what are some takeaways for entrepreneurs that you can share?
Right. Just to reiterate on what we discussed earlier, I say always do your research, and you would do this really at any stage of the game before you get into investing your heart and soul in this business. And even when you're thinking about expanding or taking on a new market or a new product or service, always do your research, make sure there's a need. And if there's already things like what you have in existence, make sure you have a different value-added proposition, or you can do it cheaper or better or more creatively. Next, this is just a personal mantra that I've used my whole life, and that's don't take no for an answer. So when you are a business owner, you're constantly putting yourself out there to the world and hoping people will buy your product or service. And a lot of times there is plenty of rejection and lots of opportunity for discouragement. But if this is what you want to do, this is your passion, once you make that decision, just don't take no for an answer and just keep going and be as tenacious as possible. And the last thing that I would say as the lawyer is get everything in writing. So anytime you have any relationship with anyone or where there's money exchanged, always get that in writing. I don't like just sending emails back and forth. We don't have a true meeting of the minds, which would constitute a contract. So make sure you have a lawyer do it. And if you can't afford a lawyer and you find a sample agreement, just make sure that it applies to you and you're not talking about one thing and it has real estate in there. So just always get a good contract.
Outstanding advice. Now, Jennifer, where can we find you next? Also, where can listeners be in contact and get more information on the Grady Firm PC?
Sure. So you can always find us on our website. It's gradyfirm.com. And we also have a blog there with hundreds of articles about all of these topics about visa options and advice for business owners. And I'm going to be doing a few speaking engagements this year at Loyola Law School in February. I'm going to be giving a course on how to start your own law firm from scratch. Last year, I was a panelist at the Select USA Investor Academy in Washington, D.C., and that's a gathering of over 2,500 entrepreneurs from around the world, and I will be attending that again in June. And lastly, I'll be speaking at the Women's Conference on Diverse Issues in Higher Education in Las Vegas in July, and I'll be teaching educators how to mentor the next generation of women leaders.
Certainly sounds like some great events to be a part of, and we also appreciate all the valuable information shared here today on the program from a legal aspect. Thanks for spending a moment with us here today on Enterprise Radio, and have a happy and prosperous 2017.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and Happy New Year.
We have been speaking with Jennifer Grady, the founding attorney and business consultant at the Grady Firm PC. And for more information in all regards, simply visit GradyFirm.com. And this is Eric Dye, and you've been listening to Enterprise Radio, a part of EPN, the Entrepreneur Podcast Network. Pick up our iPhone or Android mobile app for your exclusive mobile listening convenience. And once again, we do thank you for tuning in.
Thanks again for listening to Enterprise Radio here on the Entrepreneur Podcast Network. To subscribe for future programming, simply visit epodcastnetwork.com.
This is the ePodcast Network.